Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Mem Dalet, on Daf Mem Gimel Beis, 9 lines from the bottom. Says the Gemara, Nechemya Brei, the Rav Chaniloi. So this was his name. So this person, Nechemya Mashchase Shmaita. He got involved in his learning, preoccupied in his learning, and as a result of that, V'nafak chutz l'tchum, he wandered out of the tchum. So now he was stuck out there. Amalei Rav Chizda Rav Nachman. So Rav Chizda turned to Rav Nachman, Nechemya Talmidcha Shara B'tzar. Your Talmud Nechemya, he's in agony, he's in tsar, he's sitting out there, restricted. What can we do for him? Amar Loi. So Rav Nachman responded, this is what you should do. Asei Loi mechitza shobnei adam v'yikanes. Make for him a mechitza, using people. So create this circle around him, this enclosure, from where he is, stretching all the way back to the tchum. Right? He went out of the tchum, he's somewhere beyond the tchum. Make that mechitza. So encircle him and stretch that mechitza all the way. Line of people will stretch all the way back to the tchum, which will allow him to come back to the tchum. And when he comes back, he regains his former tchum. Now apparently Rav Chizda wasn't sure if this would be mutter, right? That's why he turned to Rav Nachman and says, what should we do with him? So he explains the Gemara. Yosef Rav Nachman Yitzchak achayre de Rav. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak was sitting behind Rava when this whole thing happened. V'Yosef Rava kamed Rav Nachman, while Rava was sitting before Rav Nachman. And this was when this exchange happened. When Rav Chizda approached Rav Nachman, he said, we have a problem, because Nechemya is sitting out in the behind the tchum, and he's bitzar. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak asked Rava, Amalei Rav Nachman Yitzchak Rava. It appears that Rav Chizda wasn't sure about how to proceed. What exactly was the suffix? My kame boile Rav Chizda. What was the uncertainty? We have two options. Are we speaking about a case where he had enough people to create that mechitza to allow him to come back? The question was whether it's halachically valid. The kamiboyle hilchas agrav gamliel, or ein halach agrav gamliel. Do we say that if a person finds himself on Shabbos encircled by these new mechitzas, do we consider this entire enclosure as though it's merely 4 amas? In accordance with Shittas Rav Gamliel, who says that if a person was placed in a deer, a sar, these corrals, these pens, on Shabbos itself, although he's out of his tchum and restricted to 4 amas, but these enclosures have a din of 4 amas. So likewise in this case, we can go ahead and encircle Nechemya with people, create this mechitza around him all the way back to the tchum, which will allow him to come back because he has 4 amas. This entire enclosure is like 4 amas. That's one option. He had enough people to fill the quota here to make the mechitza all the way back to the tchum. The question was whether pi halacha it's valid. That's one option. Oidilmo, perhaps there was another suffix here. There weren't enough people to create that mechitza all the way back to the tchum. He was going to come up short, 2 ames. So he has enough people to create a mechitza up until 2 ames of the tchum. And the question is that enough? Halacha k'Rab Lezer, or halacha k'Rab Lezer. Rabbi Yehuda tells us that if a person happens to walk out of the tchum, so we know he gets 4 ames. Rabbi Yehuda holds, how do we calculate those 4 ames? There's actually a machlekes in the Mishnah Daf Mem Hey. Rabbi Yehuda says he can choose the 4 ames in any direction. Rabbi Yehuda says no. We apply a very specific formula. V'hu be'emtzoin. He's right in the middle of those 4 ames. He gets 2 ames in either direction. That's number 1. Number 2, says Rabbi Yehuda, based on this, if he happens to walk out of the tchum, and he only walked out, let's say 2 ames. So Rabbi Yehuda says, since it's only 2 ames, and really he can walk back those 2 ames, because the 2 ames behind him is within his personal space, right? He has 2 ames in either direction. So since those 2 ames, where he can walk, are connected, are adjacent to the tchum, because he only walked out 2 ames, he holds, since they're connected to the tchum, you know what can happen? He can just walk right back into the tchum. It's as though it's one tchum, as though it's overlapping to his old chum. So the question here was, we had enough people to create a mechitza around Nechemya, Breder, Chaniloi. It's not enough to actually complete that mechitza all the way back to the chum. They were going to leave him short, 2 amis. The question is, can we follow Rabbi Elazar's shita, who allows a person who's exactly 2 amis from the tchum to return back to the original tchum? So the question was, halach Rabbi Elazar, or ye'ein halach Rabbi Elazar? So Rabbi Chizah certainly had a suffix here. The question is what it was. One option is, he had enough people to fill the mechitza. The question is, do we consider this enclosure like 4 amis, like a Gamliel? The other option, he didn't have enough people. He was going to come up 2 amis short. Do we say, even in that case, we consider him to be as though he's back in his original tchum, or not? Says ma pshita, it's pretty obvious. But Deloy Malu Gavri Askina, we're speaking about the second option, that there were not enough people to provide that enclosure all the way back to the mechitza, to the tchum, and he was going to come up 2 amas short. Why? Because if you propose that he had enough people, what would have been his shaila? Didn't Rav tell us, we went to follow Gamliel in all cases. So if a person finds himself inside a mechitza on Shabbos, it's like 4 amas. And Rav Chizda was a Talmud Rav. So what was the shaila? Elavada, it must be speaking, there were not enough people there to create this entire mechitza all the way back to the tchum. And the question revolved around Rav Elazar's shita, do we follow Rav Elazar or not? They kanami. The wording also seems to indicate as such, because when Rav Chizda asked Rav Nachman, what should we do? Rav Nachman responded, make the mechitza shebnei Adam, and he added a word. The ka'amala yikanis. He says, make a mechitza shebnei Adam v'yikanis, and he'll be allowed to go in. My yikanis, what's the point of adding this word? Isn't it pretty obvious? Why then are we doing this mechitza? Apparently, he was addressing this very scenario. Lav, are we not speaking about beloy mechitza? It means that the mechitza of the Bnei Adam was only going to reach up at a certain point, up until 2 amas of that tchum. And once he gets there, Rav Nachman told him, Yikanis. Once he's at that point, he can go in even without a mechitza, beloy mechitza. So that was his response. In response to Rav Chizda's question, do we hold the Rav Elazar or not? Rav Nachman responded, yes. You can use these Bnei Adam to create a mechitza, even though it's not a complete mechitza, and you're leaving him at the point of 2 amas out of the tchum. That's okay, because once he's there, those 2 amas which are adjacent to the tchum, we consider as though he is completely in the tchum. It's one continuous entity, as though he's back home, and he can go in there even though there's no mechitza at that point. Says the Gemara, okay, so we're going to make this mechitza of Bnei Adam. How could you make a mechitza on Shabbos? We know that a mechitza is kva, oil kva, a permanent structure is asur min HaTorah. It's baina, malacha baina. A temporary structure, oil harai, is asur min Rabbanan. Regarding being moisif on oil harai, adding, we're going to see in the Gemara soon. But certainly creating oil harai, in this case a mechitza, would be asur min Rabbanan. So how can they go ahead and make a mechitza of Bnei Adam? Says the Gemara, Eisvei Rav Nachman Yitzchak l'Rav. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak asked Rav, we have a brayse which says, no fal doifna. We have a sukkah whose wall, one of its walls, collapsed. Lo yamid ba Adam behema b'kelim. You should not position a person or an animal or kelim to substitute for that mechitza. V'lo yiskev es hamita. Nor should he stand the bed upright. Now we're speaking about just a frame. So you have to put something on it, lifrois al sudden, to hang a sheet on it to create a mechitza. So even just clearing the bed out of the sukkah and positioning it up on the side, where perhaps it just appears like he's making some room, adding some space in the sukkah, even that's not mutter. One is not allowed to initiate a new oil. So in this case, the mechitza is like an oil. He can't do it b'Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbos. So this was the kashi. He asked Rava, how can we suggest to go ahead and create a mechitza using people walking alongside each other, to create that enclosure, it's Shabbos. Amalei. So Rabbi responded, okay, I hear there's a brayso which says you cannot do it. At amras limiha. You bring me a raya from brayso number 1 which says you cannot make a mechitza oil araya on Shabbos. V'ano amin eloch meha. I'll bring you a raya from a different brayso, which seems to say that one may make a mechitza oil araya on Shabbos. Ois adam es chaveru doifen. Person allowed to use his friend as a wall for the sukkah, to enable him to eat, drink, and sleep in the sukkah, to complete the mechitza of the sukkah. He can go ahead and position the bed upright, hang a curtain on it, hang a sheet on it, to create that protection, to protect the mace or the food from the sun. So here we have a brayso number 2, which tells us one can go ahead and make a mechitza for the sukkah on Shabbos or Yom Tov, no concern. Kashna dodi. Okay, so now we have a contradiction between brayso number 1, which says you cannot, and brayso number 2, which allows. Says the Gemara, Moikash. So apparently this will be the answer. The braysos reflect different shittas. Rabbi Lezer, brayso number 1, which does not allow, is following Rabbi Lezer. Rabbanan, brayso number 2, which allows creating that mechitza, is following the Rabbanan, who allow creating a mechitzas arai on Shabbos or Yom Tov. This non. Where do we find this machlek? It's in the Mishnah. Pekaka chaloin. This window shutter. Rabbi Lezer Omer. Bizman shekosher v'toli pakikin boy. When the shutter is tied to the structure and it's also toli, it's actually suspended. It's not lying on the floor. In which case, it appears like it's used for that purpose. It's meant to be placed in the window, taken out of the window. You can use it. You can plug the window with it. It doesn't appear like he's building anything. Vimlav. But otherwise, if it's not tied or it's not hanging, any piking boy, one cannot plug the window with it because we treat it as though he's building, he's adding a temporary structure, temporary addition to the structure. That's the shita of Les. Either way, it's okay. You can use it. So this perhaps will address our question. Brayso number 1, which does not allow creating this temporary structure, just as he says you cannot use a shutter because you're doing a temporary binyan or appears as such. So likewise, you cannot create the mechitzas arai for the sukkah. Chachamim are the second brayso, who allow doing the mechitzas arai, the oil arai. Says the Gemara, there's a big difference between the two cases. For itmar lo, haven't we learned a pshat on that Mishnah that tells us that all shittas agree that one cannot initiate a oil arai on Shabbos or Yom Tov, which is the case discussed in the Al Braises. He's going to place a person to substitute for the wall, a behemo kalim. He's initiating. He's making a new mechitza, a new oil arai. All agree that's awesome. For itmar lo, haven't we learned? Omar Rabbi Yehuda. So he explains the pshat in that Mishnah. Itmar Allah on that Mishnah. Hakol moedim. All agree. Shein oisin oil arai b'tchila b'yom tov. Etzarech leim b'Shabbos. All agree. Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim. One is not allowed to construct even an oil arai, a temporary structure. Initially, can't initiate it on Yom Tov and certainly not on Shabbos. Loi nechelchu. Machlokes only applies ela lo haisif when it comes to adding a temporary addition such as the shutter. It's only an addition. He's not creating a new wall. In that case, we have machlokes. You cannot add on Yom Tov nor on Shabbos. Certainly not on Shabbos. One may be moisif oil around Shabbos, and certainly on Yom Tov. So that's only when it comes to being moisif. Like in case of the shutter, you have a pre-existing wall or a ceiling, and you're just putting that temporary shutter in there. But when it comes to actually constructing one anew, all agree that it's asr, even if it's oil harai. So apparently this won't shed light on the two brises. Ella Lekasha says apparently the answer is as follows. Hak Rabbi Meir, Hak Rabbi Yehuda. That Brisa number 1, which says, one may not use a person as a substitute for the wall of the sukkah, is following Rabbi Yehuda's shita. The Brisa which says, one may use the person for the sukkah, is following Rameya's shita. Because Rameya holds that using an animal is asur for a sukkah, meaning it's not qualified to be used as a doifim for sukkah. It might run away. So if a person uses a behema for his doifim sukkah, he hasn't really accomplished much. His sukkah is possible. He can't use his sukkah. Therefore, he can use it on Yom Tov. He can do this on Yom Tov. He hasn't done anything. Let's see inside. Hakar Rav Meir, Hakar Rav Yehuda. The Sanya, as we learned in the Brisa. Asal a behema doifim l'sukkah. If a person used an animal as a wall for his sukkah, Rameya paisel. He says it's possible because Rashi says, Gemara Sukkah tells us, Shema tivrach. It might run away. So the sukkah is possible. Rabbi Yehuda Machshir, he says it's kosher. Explains the Gemara. How is this going to explain? How is it going to answer the stira between both prices? Rameya the kapasel hasam. Rameya says that using a behema is puzzle. He disqualifies the behema wall for the sukkah. Amalav machitzahi. Apparently, it's not a kosher machitza, and therefore hachashari. The love midika of it. Therefore, over here, meaning the Brisa, which tells us he's going to place the behema there on Shabbos Yom Tov, it's fine. The love midika of it. He hadn't done anything. He hadn't really accomplished anything because the sukkah is puzzle. So since he hadn't able the sukkah for use, it's not considered to have done a machitza. So that's a pshat and Brisa number 2. Rabbi Yehuda the kamachshar hasam, in contrast to Rabbi Yehuda, who says using an animal is kosher for the doifin of sukkah. Alma machitza, apparently we treat it like a machitza. He's accomplished something. Hacha asar. That's why over here, meaning in Brisa number 1, you can't do it on Yom Tov Shabbos because you've created something. You've created a sukkah. It's a valid machitza for the sukkah. So Moshe proposing that perhaps this is the teretz of the kasha. Brisa number 1 which says you can't use this for the sukkah is following shittas of Yehuda, says it's a kosher sukkah. So you've accomplished something, you created an oil arai. Whereas Brisa number 2, which allows, is following Reb Meir, who says this thing is not kosher for the doifin sukkah. You haven't done anything. You haven't accomplished anything. Therefore, it's mutter. Says the Gemara, V'tisbra, can you suggest that this is the resolution to our question? It's only by behema who Reb Meir has told us that's not kosher on account of the concern that might run away. Adam v'kelim mishamasli. But when it comes to using a person, who knows he's meant to stay, he's not going to run away, or kelim, which are inanimate objects. Over there, does Reb Meir say it's possible? Certainly not. And Brisa number 2 tells us not only can use actually Brisa number 2 is not even talking about behema. Brisa says ois adam es chaveri doifen. He can use his friend as a doifen, or he can use a kli, a bed. So we're speaking about adam. We're talking about a kli. That's unrelated to Reb Meir. Why would that be allowed? If he puts the adam instead of the wall, or uses the bed for the wall of the sukkah, certainly the sukkah is kosher. So once the sukkah is kosher, he has accomplished something. He's created a mechitza, oil arai. That's one kasha. It's unrelated to Reb Meir, who's specifically speaking about behema. V'su, another kasha. So you're proposing that if the sukkah is not kosher, so it's mutter on Shabbos and Yom Tov because he hasn't really accomplished anything. Because we focus on the halachic aspect of the sukkah. If he hasn't enabled it for eating and drinking and sleeping, he hasn't really done anything. Despite the fact that he made a wall, he made a machitz, he made an oil. Is that so? V'su, another kash. Rameya liba deman. You're telling me that according to Reb Meir, it's mutter. Now, according to whose shita are we following? You live the Reb Lezer. Is he following Reb Lezer, who is his Rebbe? Lohoisef nami asa. We find that Reb Lezer doesn't even allow you to use the shutter, as mentioned earlier, even though he's not enabling anything. He's not making a sukkah. He's not being maksher from mitzvah sukkah. Rather, it's because he's just adding to an oil. It's a mundane oil and still asr. Lo yisef nami asr, even to add is asr. El lib rabbanon. So what are you going to say? He's following rabbanon. Rabbanon will say you can add. Therefore, you can put the shutter into the window. But that's only when it comes to adding. Eimar de amri rabbanon lo yisef. Rabban only speak about adding. The chatchila mi amr. Do they then allow actually doing something chatchila, creating a mechitza anew? Certainly not. So more discounts this approach. You can't say it depends on Rabbi Yehuda, because even according to Rabbi, he would not be allowed to put the Adam there instead of the wall, put the Kalim there instead of the wall, on account of these two kashas. Firstly, Rabbi was only speaking about a behemoth who's invalid for the Dofen Sukkah, but an Adam and Kli certainly are. Number two, even if something is invalid for Sukkah, it's not being machshel the Sukkah, it's still oil. Practically speaking, he created a wall. And this will be asur according to all sheets, even according to Rabbanan. Only allow adding, but not to actually create something. Says the Gemara, a third approach. Ella hava Rabbanan. Certainly, both brises reflect Shittas Rabbanan, who, although perhaps you can go and add to oil arai, but you can't initiate, you can't make oil arai l'chatchila. So we have a steer. Bryce number 1 says, you cannot go ahead and place the Adam, Behemo, or Kalim instead of the fallen wall of the Sukkah. Bryce number 2 says, he can go ahead and use his friend as a doifen of the Sukkah, use a kli for doifen of Sukkah without any concern. So we're going to answer this kasha. Says the Gemara, Hava Rabbanan, both the following Rabbanan. The Kalim HaKalim like kasha, the answer on the stira of the Kalim HaKalim is as follows. Ha b'doifen shlishis. The first price which says you cannot use a kli for a doifen of a sukkah, you can't go ahead and place it there on Shabbos and Yom Tov, is speaking about when it's required as a third wall. Now, if a roofed area has just 2 walls, it's not considered to be an enclosure. It's lacking. When you're putting that third wall there, you're actually creating an enclosure. We know that three mechitzas create a shesayachid. So this fellow who lost his third wall of his sukkah is going to replace it by putting a person, putting a kli. He's actually creating an oil now. He's creating an enclosure. Therefore it's us. That's the first price. The second price is speaking about a different case. Ha b'doifen revius. Price number 2 is speaking where the 4th wall collapsed. So the 4th wall is not really a vital component of the enclosure. In which case, even if he places a person or a kli there, he hasn't really fashioned an enclosure. He hasn't really made oil arai l'chatchila. At worst, he added. He added to the existing oil. And according to Rabban, that's mutter. That's going to be the answer to the kasha. Price number 1, which does not allow, is speaking about shoring up the 3rd wall, which is a substantial addition to the enclosure. He's actually making the enclosure. Therefore, it's us. Price number 2 is speaking about the 4th wall, which is not really a significant addition. It's merely, that's all it is. It's just an addition. It's hisafa. And according to Rabban, hisafa, an oil arai is mutter. Dekanami, the wording of Brisa number 1 also seemed to indicate that we're speaking about wall number 3 that needed to be replaced. Diktani, nofal doifna. In Brisa number 1, it says, nofal doifna, liyamed ba'adam behem b'kelim. Its wall fell down. What do you mean, its wall? A wall that it depended on for its kashrus. Apparently we're speaking about wall number 3. Shma mina, we have a raya, indeed, that we were speaking about wall number 3, and that's why it's asur, because by placing the person, the name of the kelim there, he's actually completing the oil, he's making an oil raya l'chatchil, which is asur. Let's take a look at Rashi, 10 lines from the bottom. B'doifen shlishis, the b'shtei the fanois ein kori oil. 2 walls don't constitute the oil. It's breached open. It's not really enclosed. So when he goes and adds a 3rd wall, he's actually creating an oil. Rabbanan agree. No one cannot go ahead and the chatchila make an oil arai. And that's why it's us. So that's Brisa number 1. Brisa number 2, v'hadatani mutter b'doifen revius. We're speaking about shoring up the 4th wall. The belav hachi have an oil. Even without the 4th wall, this place has an oil. It's considered to be an enclosed area. This is merely an addition. The Rabbanan are following their shita. The Amri Moisif and oil b'Shabbos. One can go ahead and be Moisif an oil arai on Shabbos. We have a dig from the words. The other Tani Aser, B'dayf Shliv is Kai, that when the Brisa says it's Aser, it's specifically speaking about the third wall. The Tani Nafal Doifna. The Mashma, Doifen Shinit Teraspa. Doifna. Its wall. The wall that it needed for its heter to enable its use. That's the third wall. Uravi's Levitik and Sukkah. The fourth is not really needed to create the Sukkah. The Snan is the first mission in Sukkah. V'she'en la shalosh tefonis. Psula. Ha begimuk shera. The mission says, it lists a bunch of psulim by Sukkah, and one of them is, if the Sukkah doesn't have 3 walls. Ha begimuk shera. Apparently if it has 3, it's fine. That's considered to be a proper Sukkah. Rashi in Sukkah says because the fourth side is open as a doorway. An enclosure has to have a doorway. So it only needs to be surrounded by 3 walls. So, the Brisa number 1 was speaking about what was missing its third wall. So certainly adding that third wall is considered to be creating an oil. Whereas Brisa number 2 was speaking about when it had 3 walls intact. In which case, adding that fourth is merely a suffer on a pre-existing structure. In which case, according to Rabbanan, a suffer as oil arai is mutal chatchil. So this answers the kasha of Kalim. Brisa number 1 allows Kalim to be placed there. Brisa number 2 not. Says the Gemara, Ella Adam kasha. But we still have a kasha remaining. Because Brisa number 1 tells us he can go ahead and he cannot go ahead and use the Adam for the Sukkah. Brisa number 2 says, Oisa Adam is chaveroi doifen. One can use his friend as a doifen. And the Brisa continues, Kadei sheyoichal v'yishta v'yishan. To enable him to eat, drink, and sleep in that Sukkah. Apparently, we're speaking about being machshir the Sukkah with the Adam, which otherwise wouldn't be suitable for eating, drinking, and sleeping. So apparently we're speaking about using the person as a third wall. If that's the case, if both Brisa are speaking about wall number 3, we have a contradiction. Brisa number 1 says you cannot use him. Brisa number 2 allows. Ella Adam Akash. Says Adam Nami Lakash. That too can be answered as follows. Kan ledas. Brisa number 1 was speaking where the person who was placed there was fully aware as to the purpose why he's being placed there, to be used as a machitza. Therefore it's awesome. Kan shaloi ledas. Brisa number 2, which allows, was speaking about shaloi ledas. He was totally unaware of what's happening. He didn't know that he's being used as a machitza, and therefore it doesn't appear like somebody's creating a machitza here, and it's mutter. Let's take a look at Rashi. 4 lines from the top. So Rashi ledas. So Brisa number 1 was ladas she'oimed sham yoideya she'l'shem mechitza heimidu sham also. If the person knows that he's being placed there for the sake of mechitza, it looks like he's being used for mechitza. He's creating a mechitza there. It's also. But sheloi ladas muta. If the person doesn't know, he's not aware as to the purpose of why he's being positioned there, then there's no concern, and that's Brisa number 2. Explains Rashi. The mishamasiyas oil lekal meimer. We can't consider this to be making an oil in this case, because he's using a person who just walk away, and he's unaware of what's happening. So we're lacking that designation, that awareness, and therefore combining both factors, we say dein derech binim bekach. This doesn't appear like a manner of building. It doesn't give that appearance. Avo kli derech binim bekach. But using a kli, certainly that's derech binim, even though it's just temporary. When you're placing a kli there, which is just going to stay there as is, it's going to remain in place, it gives that impression of building. In contrast to the person that can just walk away, especially if he doesn't know what's happening. So, all these factors combine, create that distinction between a kli which is more stringent and is asr, in contrast to a person who is mutter. It's only a person, and he doesn't know, he's not aware of what's happening. So the lack of awareness also mitigates things. It doesn't appear to him like he's being used for machitza. He's just standing there. It doesn't have designation of a machitza. Says Rashi, that's why with a person it's mutter, but by a kli, it's also hilkach doif shlish is asr. When it comes to a person, if it's the third machitza, then it's asr. There's a quick summary. So when it comes to keli, if it's doif shlish, it's asr. Doif revi, it's mutter. When it comes to adam, depends if it's ladas or shloi ladas. Says the Gemara on the second line from the top. Okay, so ladas is asr. V'hara mechemya b'reider chamiloi ladas hava. So if so, how can they use the bnei adam to create the mechitza to bring back Rabbi Nechemya from where he was. He was stranded outside Tchum, and they retrieved him by creating that mechitza bnei adam. Well, it was ladas. People were aware of why they're being called to that location. You can't use people as a mechitza if it's ladas. Says the Gemara Shalom Midas Hava. Indeed, it was without awareness. People were not told the purpose of their being summoned to that area. Shalom Midas Hava. Says the Gemara Rav Chizda Miel Das Hava. Rav Chizda, who brought the people together, how can he be considered to be as part of that mechitza? He knows, he's fully aware of why he's there. Rav Chizda Shalom Minas Hava. Indeed, he wasn't part of the quorum. He wasn't part of the mechitza. Continues the Gemara. Hanu bnei Genana. There were these people that were involved in a wedding on Shabbos. Da'ilu maya b'mechitza shabani adam. Or as Rabbi Yehuda says, the people who used to make the canopies for the chuppah, for the canopy for the chassan. So in any case, these bnei Genana, so on Shabbos they decided to bring some water from the Shesarab into Shesayachid, using a mechitza shabani adam, surrounding the area with people, creating that mechitza, which allowed them to carry. They brought water into Shesayachid using a mechitza of bnei adam. Nagdinu Shmuel. So Shmuel gave them malchus. Amar, im amr shleil midas, the chum allowed a mechitza of bnei adam to be used if it's shleil midas, when they're unaware of why they're being placed there. Yom ladas, do you think they would allow even ladas? Certainly not. So in this case, where the people were placed there, knowing full and well they're being used as a mechitza, certainly you cannot use them. Hanu ziki, there were these leather containers, that were sitting in the street of Mechayza, Shusarabit. So what happened? As Rava was coming back from his shir, surrounded by lots of people, so the shamash, the attendant, decided to do him a favor. These containers belong to Rava. He brought them from Shusarabit into Shusayachid, using these bnei adam, which was surrounding the area. The coming Shabbos, he again wanted to do the same thing, bring them in. And Rava did not allow them. Why? Rava held that if you're going to do it repeatedly, eventually it's going to get known. People are going to realize what's happening, and they're being used as a mechitza. Therefore, he said, it has a din of ladas, and you cannot do it any longer. Says in Levi, Ailu leitivna. So they did a similar thing when it comes to Levi, and they brought the teven into Shesayachid, utilizing the mechitza bnei adam. Zeiri, for the Zeiri they did the same thing regarding aspasta, these young green grain that they feed to the animals, so they carried in for him using the mechitza bnei adam. For him they did the same thing when it came to carrying water. So they used the mechitza bnei adam because it was shaloi ladas. So in summary, we began with the story of Rabbi Nechemia bnei Rabbi Chaniloi, who was stranded out of the Tchum. And Gemara tells us he can go ahead and use the mechitza bnei adam to bring him in. And the Gemara tells us like this: when it comes to making a mechitza on Shabbos, if he's going to use a behema or a kli, that depends. If this is a third mechitza of an enclosure, and he's creating oil arai, he cannot do that on Shabbos and Yom Tov. If it's merely as a fourth wall, in which case he's merely making ha'isaf, he's adding, he's making a temporary addition to a pre-existing structure. This is mutter according to Shittas Rabban. When it comes to using a person, it depends. If it's ladas, he's aware that he's being used for mechitza, then it's us. Shalai ladas, then it's mutter. Continues the Mishnah. Mishi yotza b'rshus. If a person had to leave his tchum with permission for the sake of a mitzvah, Rashi says, for instance, to say Eidos HaChodesh, to testify at the Bezdin, they saw a new moon, or for the sake of an emergency, he went to save people from invaders, from a flood, etc. So he went out of his tchum with permission. He's in the middle of the road and he meets some people. They say, look, you can turn back. We don't need you. It was taken care of already. So what happens then? He's out of his tchum. He went beyond 2,000. Says the Mishnah, there's a special takana. Generally, a person only has 4 amas. In this case, yeshloi Alpayim amal chorach. He's granted 2,000 amma in all directions. There's a special din d'Rabbanan because he went for the mitzvah, so he receives a new tchum right where he is. Im hayibasech tchum. What if he was still in his original tchum? Ki lo yatz, as though he never left. Now, if he's still in his original tchum, and certainly he didn't leave. What does the Mishnah mean? Ki ilu lo yatz, it says though he never left. The Gemara will explain. Concludes the Mishnah. Kol hayotzin lahatzel, or shekol hayotzin lahatzel, because all those that go out to save, chayzun mekayman, allowed to go back to the original location. The Gemara will explain what is the exact meaning of this clause in the Mishnah. It says the Gemara, Mai imay b'seich atchum ki lo yatz. What do you mean? If he was still in his original tchum, it says though he never left. Of course, if he's still in the tchum, he didn't leave. What do you mean it says though he never left? We have two approaches. Amar Rabba, Hachik Amar. This is what the Mishnah means to say. If he was still within his original tchum, so he's walking along and he's still within his boundary. When he got the news that he's not needed, it says though he's never left his home. So the kinyan shvisa that he acquired during Ben Hashmashis in his home, which granted him the boundary of 2,000 amma around the home, around the city, is still intact. It's as though he never left his home. He didn't relinquish the tchum and the shvisa of his home. There's no pshita, of course. Why would I think otherwise? He's still in his tchum. He never left. Perhaps I would think, since he uprooted himself from his home, he intended on traveling very far to go save the people from the flood. So perhaps we should consider it as though he relinquished. He gave up his shvisa of his home. And therefore, he gets 2,000 from his present location. Because that's halacha. When a person goes to save somebody, he gets 2,000 from where he is. So perhaps that is his new tchum. He has given up his old tchum. Kamash Malon, the Mishnah tells us that's not so. Let's take a look at Rashi, right off to the left. The word Gemara is right by the left over here. Maiki lo yotze. That's the Gemara's kasha. We're speaking that he never left the tchum. What do you mean it says though he never left? Havada lo yotze. He certainly never left. He's still in the tchum. This is what the Mishnah means to say. As follows. When the Mishnah says, it says though he never left, it's a reference to his home. And this is what I mean to say. If he's still within the boundary of his home, within 2,000 of his home, he can go back home. It's as though he never uprooted himself from his home. That's why he still has 2,000 per direction from his home. As he initially had. Nothing changed. I mean, we don't say only from the location where he received the news that he received a new type of tchum. He lost his original tchum. He's uprooted himself. He's relinquished that. And it's from his present location that he must calculate 2,000. We don't say that. So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. If he was still in the tchum, says as though he never left his home. He didn't give up his home. That still remains his makom shvisa, and he calculates 2,000 from the home. Pshita, says the Gemara, even the adayin lo yatzu tchum. If he never left the tchum, kilu beis adam, it says, oh, he's still home. Why would I think otherwise? Perhaps I would say, given the akar, lotes b'shus. Since he was akar, he uprooted himself to actually leave. He set out on this journey to go very far, b'shus, with permission. Rabbanan, tikunle, Rabbanan will misaken for him. Memokem shenem b'lei apayim charuach. Chacham created this new type of tchum, a tchum for a person who went to do a mitzvah. And he said, well, wherever you are, count from there 2,000. Perhaps he attains new status. He's given up his old personal tchum. He now acquired a new type of tchum, a tchum of mitzvah. Hachanami. So here as well, afagav the koi b'tchumay. Even though he's technically still in his old tchum, perhaps he had lost that already. And we must count anew. Limdei le'mi hasam, let him measure from there. V'boy le'meipak le'puk. If he wants to, meaning he has 2,000 from there. Kamash malon, the chiddush is no, he still retains his old tchum. So the story here is that since this concept of a person that's going to the Bar Mitzvah who receives this new type of tchum of 2,000 is a new type of tchum. It's not your personal tchum. You weren't really there during Ben Hashmashis. So perhaps he exchanged one for the other, because on his way out of his home, he said, bye home, I'm giving you up. I'm going to do a mitzvah. I'm going to place myself in the hands of the Chachamim. I'm going to get a new tchum of a mitzvah man. So perhaps that replaces and substitutes his old tchum. Kamash Malan, no, since he's still within the confines of his home, there's no reason to say that he's given up anything. That's Rabbi's approach. Says the Gemara, in the first wide line, Rav Simon bar Chia Amar, he has a different approach. Hachik Amar, this is what the Mishnah means to say. If the tchumen that the Chachamim granted him, so he was on the road, and he was told, he's no longer needed. Mishnah tells us, Chachamim give him a new boundary. So if those tchumen, those boundaries, those 2,000 amma, are muvlon, are swallowed in, meaning they're overlapping, they're overlapping the original tchum, his original personal tchum. So for instance, he began walking from his home, he reached 2,000 amma, and he walked beyond that tchum. Let's say he walked another 1,000 amma. He was told he's no longer needed. Mishnah tells us he gets a new tchum of 2,000 in either direction. So now he can continue walking 2,000. He can also walk back 2,000, in which case he's going to be re-entering his original tchum. So the new tchum is overlapping the old tchum. At a certain point, they join together. If that's the case, it's as though he never left his original tchum. The new tchum and the old tchum merge together. They combine to create a single large-sized tchum, and he can go all the way back home. So that's what Simon bar Chia's approach to the Mishnah. Mishnah says, it means that if the new tchum was still within the old tchum, meaning there was an overlapping portion, as though he never left his old tchum, meaning he can go back all the way home, because both tchumen have now merged into one. Now Rabbah didn't have this approach in the Mishnah, but Ma'aker Miflagi, what's the basis of their machlekes? Why didn't Rabbah approach the Mishnah the way Rav Simon bar Chia did? Says in Mar Savar have lost tchumen milsi. Rav Simon bar Chia holds that overlapping tchumen join together, merge into one tchum. Mar Savar lav milsi. Rabbah holds this doesn't work, and therefore he didn't have this approach to our Mishnah. Amalei Abai leRabbah. Va'ad leTizbra. Do you not hold of this concept? To have lost tchumen milsi? When two tchumen merge together, they overlap. They become one unified tchum. You don't hold of that halacha? I'm going to illustrate to you a case where even you would agree to me that we employ the method of havlas tchumen. Uma ilu Shabbos b'mara. Let's say a person spent his Shabbos in a cave, shebesoicha arbas alaf, which is very long, a 4,000 amma long cave. Now, this cave featured two psachim, two entranceways, one on the right, one on the left. Val gaga pachas marbas alafim amma. The rooftop, the gag of this cave, was a bit narrower than the inside. It was less than 4,000. Now, certainly he may walk through the entire cave without any hesitation, because we know a person's home, the place where a person spent his Ben Hashmashis, that's his Shabbos residence, considered like 4 amas. So no concern with walking throughout the entire interior space of the Ma'ara. What about outside the Ma'ara? So, when he leaves the entranceway to the right, where can he walk? He can walk 2,000 amma away from the Ma'ara, meaning to the right of the Ma'ara. He can also go up on the roof and walk to the left at a distance of 2,000. Now the same thing applies if he leaves the left entranceway of the Ma'ara. He can continue walking to the left of the Ma'ara, 2,000 amma, that's his tchum. He can also make a right turn and go on the rooftop to the right towards the other entranceway for 2,000 amma. Now what comes out? That these two boundaries, they meet each other, they overlap. When he leaves the right entranceway and makes a left turn, he can go 2,000. When he leaves the left entranceway, goes up on the roof and makes a right, he can go 2,000. And those boundaries, those 2,000 amma sections actually overlap in the middle. because the rooftop is less than 4,000. In that case, we say, well, since your tchum coming out of the right entranceway, the tchum coming out of the left entranceway meet each other, overlap in the middle, they bond together, they join together, they merge into one tchum, and now this person can walk freely throughout the rooftop of this Mara. He can even go out of the right entranceway and walk all the way straight to the left Pesach without any concern, because we employ the concept of Avlos Tchumen. Since both boundaries are intertwined, intermingled with each other, they join together. They become one. So this was Abaye's presentation to Rabbah. Certainly you'll agree in this case that this person can walk freely for one Pesach to the other over the roof. Does it not turn out that he'll be able to walk throughout the entire rooftop, considered to be one and the same tchum? In addition to that, another 2,000 beyond the Mara. So you agree with me? It seems like this was taken for granted. This is a svara pshuta, that the rooftop is perfectly accessible to him because the tchum from the right Pesach, the tchum from the left Pesach meet each other. It's Avlos tchum, they overlap, and they join into one tchum. You'll agree with me that we say that in this case. If that's the case, so why do you disagree in our Mishnah? Do you not hold of Rav Simon Bar Chia's chiddush that if the person left his boundary and he was told he's no longer needed, he's given a new tchum, which actually overlaps with his former tchum? We don't say they join together, they merge into one tchum. Why not? Amar Leis, the rabbi responded, how can you compare the two things? There's a big difference. Don't you differentiate between the case of the cave? That's a case where he spent Shabbos, he spent Ben Hashmashos within the avir of those mechitzas, within the confines of the mechitzas of the cave. From Erev Shabbos, in that case, it becomes his makom shvisa. And since on the rooftop as well, he can access that middle section coming from both directions, whether from the right entranceway or from the left entranceway, he can access the middle of that rooftop. So they overlap. So we consider it to be one single shvisa, one single boundary, because this happened all at once. Meaning, at the point of Ben Hashmashos, when his makom shvisa became formed and initiated, it's been established in this manner. We treat the entire area as one boundary. That makes sense. But how can you compare it to our case? A case where did he spend his Ben Hashmashos? Back at home. Now he left his tchum. He's on the road. Suddenly he was given a new tchum. Was he there during Ben Hashmashos? Certainly not. This is a new phenomenon. This is a new thing that was granted to him. This is something that developed after Ben Hashmashos. So you can't go ahead and change the equation. You can't say, well, since it's overlapping with his original tchum, suddenly both tchumen, both boundaries will merge into one. You can't change the equation during Shabbos. Only in the case of the Ma'ara, where everything happened at one and the same time. It was established during Ben Hashmashos. In this manner, fine. So it's all one tchum. But once he's attained a tchum during Ben Hashmashos, from his home up until 2000, it's only later on Shabbos that he got a second tchum. You can't say that it merges with the first tchum and changes the equation, changes the nature, becomes all one big tchum. That doesn't happen on Shabbos. Because the halacha is determined Ben Hashmashos. That's Rava's response. I agree in the case of the cave, I disagree in the case of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara, and presumably Abaye challenged Rabbi again. I mean to say that if he didn't spend his Ben Hashmashos there, we don't employ this concept of Avlos Tchumen. I'll prove to you that we do. V'atnan, we listen to the Mishnah. Rabbi Lezer Omer, Shtayim Yikonis, Gimel Lo Yikonis. So let's take a look at Rashi. V'atnan, Rabbi Lezer Omer, on the top line. If a person left his tchum, he stepped out 2 extra amas, he's allowed to come back. Aval gimel lo yikanes, but 3, that's too far, he can no longer come back. My high shiur de nakat. What is this exact shiur that Rabbi Lezer is stating here? 2 yes, 3 no. We discussed this earlier. Lav Rabbi Lezer tamei. Apparently Rabbi Lezer is following the sheet. Dav masnissen. Gabadal amas shnasu hacham. Liyotze chutz l'tchum. Do son. How do we calculate the 4 amas, which is granted to a person when he walks out of his tchum, the hu be'emtzon, we apply the formula of hu be'emtzon. He's considered to be in the middle, meaning he has 2 amas in either direction. Sheyesh l'chol tzida of beis amas, 2 amas in either direction. Ulefichach, zeh sheyatza beis amas chutz l'tchum. And as a result of that concept, so that's concept number 1. As a result of that, when this person walked 2 amas out of the tchum, then he can go back to the tchum. Why? Because if he walks back, if he goes back those 2 amas, where's he going to be? Right at the edge of the tchum. So those 2 amas are actually connecting to his former tchum. Therefore, he can slip right in without hesitation. Given the beis amoisa dvuka is like betchumoy, since those amas are connected, are touching his original tchum, spherically Reblezer holds the command that moves them betchumay dome. It's as though they're overlapping. They drive. They lead right in. Umutal ekanis. Therefore, he's allowed to go back. Al milsi. So apparently, we apply a concept of havlas tchum and milsi, even in the case where he wasn't there doing ben hashmashos. This is news. He walked out on Shabbos. He was given this new share of Daled Amis. This is something new. This wasn't here during Ben Hashmashos. Still, we see Rabbi Yehuda holds. We can go ahead and connect the current Mokim to the earlier Shvisa, to the earlier Tchum. This allows them to slip right back in. Says the more on the second line, my lav. Should we not assume Rabbi Yehuda Tameh? Rabbi Yehuda is following the Shita, as Rashi explained. The Omar, who emtzon. When we give a person 4 amas, he's right in the middle. And therefore he has 2 amas in either direction. Va'ab amas, the Rabbanon, the 4 amas that were granted him by the Rabbanon, command the mivlon damu. It's as though they're swallowed and overlapping and connecting with the original tchum, allowing him to go right back in. Bekami yikonis. Rabbi Yehuda says he can go back in. Alma, we see from here, I've lost tchum and milsi. This works. So that Abaye's kasha to Rabbah. We see even in the case where he was not there during Ben Hashmashah. It's something new. We can go ahead and reconnect him to his old tchum. Amalei Rabbah, Barachana L'Abaye. How could he ask a kasha? Umidar Belezer Kamois Lemar? You mean to ask a kasha from Rabbi Lezer on Rabbah? Chacham disagree. Rabbah is following Shittas Chachamim, who apparently hold we don't apply this concept of havlas tchumen. Amar lei. So I responded yes, I do want to ask. Why? Because I myself personally heard from Ma'ar, which is Rabbah. Adkan. The Rabban only disagrees with Rabbi Lezer. If this person left his tchum for a non-mitzvah purpose, it's only over there they hold, well, we can't reconnect you with your old tchum. But when he left for the sake of a mitzvah, such as in our Mishnah, and he was granted this new tchum, and this new tchum overlaps with the previous tchum, they agree to Rabbi Lezer that havloas tchum and milsi. It's not a contradiction. The old tchum is your personal space, your personal tchum. This new tchum is a mitzvah tchum. There's no conflict here. So even though you already have that current tchum, that mitzvah tchum, that's a new variety of a tchum. That's a new type of tchum. That's granted the chacham if a person is doing a mitzvah. There's no conflict between that and the former tchum. So certainly if they overlap, they connect. They join forces. And he certainly can go back all the way to his home. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We began with the incident about Rav Nechemia, who due to his preoccupation in learning became stranded out of the tchum. Rav Nachman said, no problem, just create a mechitza of people and bring them back home. Then we'll proceed with a discussion regarding the halacha of creating a oil arai on Shabbos or Yom Tov, a temporary structure. The Gemara concluded as follows. If you're using a behemo or kalim, then if it's being used as a mechitza shlishis, the third wall which is needed to create that enclosure, it's also because you're initiating, you're creating an oil arai on Shabbos or Yom Tov. If it's merely for the sake of the fourth wall, which is not really a vital component of that enclosure, that's merely considered like a hisafa oil arai, and according to Shittas Chachamim, that's mutter. When it comes to using a person, depends if it's ladas, if he's aware of what's happening, that he's being used for that purpose, then it's also. If it's shloi ladas, if he's unaware, in this case it's mutter. The Mishnah told us that if a person goes out for the sake of mitzvah, to say eidos of Kiddush HaChodesh, to save people from a flood, then even if he was turned back midway, he gets a new tchum right there, 2,000 amar in either direction. The Mishnah concluded that if he never left the tchum, then it's as though he never left. Rabbi says, what does this mean? If he's still within his first tchum, the tchum of his home, then he still retains that tchum. It's as if he never left his home. Rav Yehuda tells us, we're speaking about a case where he certainly left his initial boundary, and he was granted a new tchum, but that second tchum overlaps his first boundary. In this case, both tchumen combined together have lost tchumen milsi and can go back all the way to his home. The Gemara concluded regarding this concept, all agree. In the case of a cave, where he was shavas b'avir machitzos, certainly the rooftop of the cave is totally accessible to him. We combine the boundary of the right side, boundary of the left side together to establish one complete large-sized tchum, because this was established at the time of Ben Hashmashos. However, in the case of Lo Yishavs Moedoim, like in the case of Al Mishnah, where he was granted a new tchum on Shabbos, then we have a machlekes. So if it's a case of Devar Rishus, if he went out for an for purpose, according to Blazer, have lost tchum and milsi. According to Rabbanon, we don't say that we combine the new and old tchum together. If the reason why he went out was a Dvar Mitzvah, in this case, the Gemara concluded, all agree, have lost tchum and milsi.